Hello everyone. Today Albie and I are going to talk to you about how to incorporate some of the training that we do with distractions, because that's one of the hardest things whenever we're working our dog, is to be able to figure out how to use those behaviors in real life in order to get our dogs focusing on us no matter what's going on around us. So today we're going to be using a few different techniques. So I'm going to be talking about touch, our recall, and our dog's name response in order to get our dogs listening to us and working with us outside. Because a lot of times when we take them outside, they are in outside mode. They're in I'm a dog mode, whereas when they're inside, we and them are in training mode. Right, so I'm working on sits specifically, I'm working on downs, maybe I'm working on some leave-its, but when I take them outside, it's really hard to be able to translate that. So as you guys can see, Albie is very much distracted because, you know, there's a lot going on around us. This is also her backyard though, so it might be a little bit easier for her to focus out here, which is one of the things I want to keep in mind. So I'm going to start off in a lower traffic area. There is stuff going on, you know, she's very conditioned to looking at everybody walking by as they're walking their own dogs. So she kind of has a bit of a history in this location that she might not have elsewhere, but she's also has a history of working in the backyard, which she doesn't have in other locations. So we want to keep that in mind as we're thinking about what we're going to do, where we're going to do it, and how we're going to practice. So I like to warm up first with my orientation game. The thing that I want to keep in mind though, before I even get started, is I want to have the right equipment. So I have treats that my dog is going to work for. I'm not going to use something like their kibble if they're not willing to work for their kibble outside. If they are, that's fantastic and I can use that, but I might need something a little bit higher value when I'm taking them out and about. I'm also going to use a long line. So this is a 20-foot leash, and when I do that, I'm not going to just necessarily give them all 20 feet. So as you notice, I'm giving her about 2 to 3 feet of leash. This is what I would give her if she was on a 6-foot leash or any other time that I was working with her, whether I was going to a training class or I was taking her for a walk, whereas here I want her to have the illusion of freedom. So that's why I'm going to use a longer leash and let her get a little bit further away before I end up trying to get her attention back. So I'm going to do my orientation game just to kind of start off with. I'm going to wait for her to pay attention to me. I'm not looking necessarily for eye contact. Honestly, I'm okay with her just sitting here, just kind of being ready to work. Because if I were to call her, you know, I know from her that I'm going to get a response back. So, Albie. Albie. Touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. So we just had a distraction go by. Touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. Touch. Yes, good job. So this is a really good exercise when there is a distraction. Albie, touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. It doesn't require a lot of effort for my dog to do. Albie. Touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. Touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. Touch. Yes, good girl. Good job. I'm tossing the treat, so she's got to find it. And that's going to make it more of a game for her. It's going to make it more fun. Albie, touch. Yes, good job. Very nice. Good. Touch. Yes, good girl. So this just goes to show that you really have to be ready. Touch. Yes, the second you take your dog out. So because I was doing this little video, touch. Yes, good job. I wasn't really focusing primarily on her. Touch. Yes, good job. And she's an older dog. She's about 10, so she has, you know, certain behaviors established. Touch. Very nice. She's not a baby that, you know, loses focus really easily, so she's able to get it back. Touch. Very good. But with a young dog especially, I want to make sure the second I'm taking them out that I'm willing to work. So now that she's a little bit more focused, yes, I'm going to do my orientation game. So I wait for her to give me attention. I'm going to mark and reward with my yes, toss the treat off to the side. Yes. She looks back at me. I say yes. I toss the treat off to the other side. I wait for her to turn back to me again. Yes. And same thing. So yes. As she gets more and more successful, I'm going to kind of give her more space to get distracted. So yes. So I'm tossing the treat further and further away. This is where my long line starts to come in. Yes, very nice. This is where I start to give my dog more and more space. Yes, very good. Yes, beautiful. Good job. So she's allowed to look, she's allowed to focus on other things. She likes the sound of her own voice. Yes, very nice. And then I just keep working her until I get to a point where, yes, Abby, thank you. Where I'm fairly comfortable in her ability to focus on me. And this is something that I'm not necessarily using their name for. I can, yes, good girl. But in the beginning, I always like to capture those behaviors that our dog is willing to offer us instead of having to ask them for a behavior. So she's busy trying to find all of the pieces that I dropped. And so this is a great opportunity for me to show you a recall. So these are all things that I'm going to kind of intertwine into our training session. Yes, good girl. So feel free to reinforce your dog for anything that you like, right? So whether she's looking at me, whether she moves towards me in any way, shape, or form, if she looks at a distraction, yes, good girl, and then happens to look back at me, we always want to make sure we're rewarding those moments. So, touch, yes, good girl. I can ask for some touch. I toss the treat off to the side, she eats it, she looks at something else. Hubby. Touch. Yes, good girl. I ask her for touch again. Good job. Touch. Yes, good job. So notice, I'm not asking her to totally ignore our distractions. All I'm doing is asking her for her to disengage with those distractions and instead give me attention. Touch. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Go get it. Abby. Abby, touch. Come in. I know. Touch. Yes, good girl. She has a hard time. I can ask again. Good job. Now I will try. Albie, come. Good job. My recall. Yes, good girl. She comes, she sits at my feet. She gets her 5 to 7 treats one at a time. Good girl. Very nice. Good job. I appreciate that. Good girl. Okay. Very nice. After I recall her, I allow her to go and to sniff again, right? So she's allowed to look. She's allowed to kind of get distracted. What? Oh, good girl. Thank you for that. What's this? What's that? And then I can try one more time. Albie, come. Good girl. Yes, very nice. Good job. Good girl. Good girl. Very nice. Good job. Great. Okay. Good. Then I can see if I can get her distracted again. What's this? What's that? You got smells? You got lots of smells? And you can see she's actively trying to seek me out. She's trying to look for me. Abby, touch. Yes, good girl. Oh, we got her a little tangled there. Good job. Abby, touch. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Again, once I'm comfortable, I can drop the leash, but I'm really just trying to make sure I'm giving her opportunities to come back to me and to check in with me. Touch. Yes, good girl. Very nice. while I'm still allowing her to sniff and to enjoy herself, right? So she's able to look whenever she wants. The only thing I don't really want her doing is barking at my neighbors. But other than that, right, she's able to sniff, she's able to explore. You know, if she wants to talk a little bit, I'm okay with maybe 1 or 2 barks. But I'm really just trying to make sure that I'm encouraging her to come back to me. I'm encouraging her and I'm engaging with her. So it's not just me telling her, no, stop barking, no, stop doing this. I'm really giving her another option, and I'm really redirecting her attention instead of making it so that she's just hearing, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do this all the time. Albie, touch. Yes, good girl. And you can see she's getting nice and focused, and as I start to do this, I can start to broaden the amount of area that I'm covering. So instead of just this 10-foot space or this 20-foot space, I can start to do the whole backyard, right? Good girl. Touch. Yes, good job. I always have that long line on though as a bit of a safety net. So if I need to, I can grab her by the leash and I can get her attention back. If there was ever a potentially dangerous situation, if we were out in a public park or public area, I'm not going to ever drop the leash. I always want to make sure that I have the leash kind of attached to me. Albie, come. Good girl. Oh no, you're stuck. You got stuck. I will help you with that. Oh, okay, good. Hey, come. Good job. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Good girl. Good job. Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. Good girl. Okay. So you could clearly see she was focused on something else, something in the distance, and all I did was, after doing a lot of prep in order to get and keep her attention, it was easy for her to switch from I'm distracted mode to, oh, mom called me mode, as opposed to if we were just to come out here, I wasn't to be engaging with her at all, and all of a sudden she's trying to bark and I call her, because at that point she's hyper focused on something in particular. Albie, touch. Yes, good girl, very nice. Touch. Yes, good girl. I can also just use my dog's name, so if she happens to look, Albie, yes, and then chooses to look back at me, I can reward her. We can do our name game where I'm tossing the treats, calling Albie, yes, and rewarding when I get that eye contact. Albie, yes, and I can mix it up. Albie, touch, yes, good girl. Very nice. Good job. Albie. Yes, good girl. Ready? Touch. That was, yes, good girl. Very nice. Albie, come. Good girl. Yes, very good. Good girl. Very nice. Good job. Good job. Very good. Good girl. And the more you start to practice this with your dog, the more you'll be able to not start off in that I need to give you constant feedback mode. You'll be able to kind of just go out on your walk, and then if your dog gets distracted by something, say a dog or another person, then you'll be able to ask them for their attention, and they will have this ingrained in their history, and they'll just be very good and very adept at being able to switch from the environment to paying attention to you. And that's really what we want, is that ability to switch. Albie. Touch. Touch. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Touch. Yes, good girl. Touch. Yes, good girl. Good job. Touch. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Again, just encouraging her to come back to me. Touch. Very nice. Instead of barking at the people going by. Yeah. Oh, yes. Good job. And you can see she starts to get more and more focused as I work her. Touch. Yes. Good job. So that's my goal, is just to be able to get her used to that. Touch. That switch from distracted to focused. And once that switch becomes really good, touch. Yes. Good job. And she's really good at using it. Then I'm going to be able to start to apply it to more and more situations. Touch. Yes. And notice I'm not asking her for sits. I'm not asking her for downs. I can, but that tends to be a behavior that works on managing and restricting my dog's position. And when my dog is anxious, then that's not something I want to do. Yes, good girl. Good. Because if you think about it, right, if you're anxious and then somebody comes up and bear hugs you and says you're not going to be able to move from this position, or says, you know, you takes you to a party where you don't know anyone and says, here, you're going to sit in this one particular seat and you're not going to move. And, you know, to me, right, as an introvert, that would be something that would be really scary. I think for a lot of people, just that thought of being restrained and not being able to move freely can be really intimidating. And so it's the same thing with our dogs. So I want to try to do something that's going to get rid of that anxious energy. So by calling her to me, I'm allowing her to run to burn off some of that energy. Touch. Yes. She's getting up and moving in order to catch my hands. I'm calling her name, and then I'm tossing a treat. So I'm doing all of these things that is helping to burn off that energy instead of really restraining it and kind of putting a cap on it and then just having everything below the surface kind of simmering and boiling, because that's really what I don't want, because when we do that, we get these really big explosions from our dogs, and we want our dogs to be able to work through everything that's happening. Right? Right? There's nobody there now. Albie. Thank you. Yes, good girl. Very nice. All right, well, thank you for that today. I hope that this helps you in order to work your dog around distractions. As you can see, even the most trained dogs sometimes get hyper focused on things depending on breed and their location. So it's not something that needs to be something that we're ashamed of or that we think is a problem. We just want to make sure we're doing our best to kind of work them through it. Albie. Touch. Albie. Hey. Albie. Touch. Yes, good girl. Good. Albie. Touch. Yes, good job. All right, well, thank you guys, and I hope to hear from you soon.